Hello and welcome to From the Plant Floor Up. This is Chris Gibbs, CRO of DYNICS. Today, Jeff Smith, our CTO, will be talking with Michael MacMahon. Michael is with Newcomb Boyd. He's the Associate Principal Director of Intelligent Building Studio. He's been an operational technology leader for more than 20 years, pioneering and managing complex IT and OT solutions. Through a history of collaboration with Fortune 500 companies, he is accomplished in providing technology consulting, strategic planning, and specializing in implementation and lifecycle management strategies for successful, secure operational technology programs. He's also a contributing member of the Information Systems Audit and Control Association, ISACA, the Real Estate Cyber Consortium, Control System Cybersecurity Association International, and a framework developer for buildingcybersecurity.org. So with that introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff and Michael.
Hi, good afternoon, Michael.
Good afternoon.
So it's great having you on the call today, or the show today, or the podcast today. Just wondered if you could give those folks listening a little bit of background on Newcomb and Boyd, maybe highlight some of your experience with those folks.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate being here. Newcomb Boyd is over 100 years old. It's a mechanical, electrical, plumbing consulting engineer group based in Atlanta. That's where we're headquartered, and we've got offices all over the country. I myself am out of Detroit, Michigan. And the Intelligent Building Studio is part of that. It's born of the MEP. So it's kind of an evolution of mechanical, electrical, plumbing. And for those that don't know and aren't familiar with the design construction industry, when you're building a building, you have an architecture team who then has a design team. And when you pick an architecture group, that design team consists of various consultants, one of which is the mechanical, electrical, plumbing group. And they make sure that you're getting your HVAC, your lighting, your electrical, your plumbing throughout the building, etc. And then we have a number of specialty organizations within Newcomb Boyd, such as acoustics, lighting, low voltage design, pretty much anything that you would need in a building, audio visual. We have an energy sustainability group, commissioning group. And so we bring a depth of design work to every single project that we have. And in the Intelligent Building Studio, our job, and it's funny, we call it the intelligent buildings or smart buildings. A lot of people have heard that term. And it really doesn't make the building smart. It makes you smart about your building through the use of technology. And that's kind of where I live. Being able to leverage the different systems that are in the building as they get more evolved, they're becoming mini computers with different pieces of software on it. You can tap into them and derive insights about your building, how it's operating, how it's being utilized, etc. And this crosses all market verticals from manufacturing to retail to healthcare, higher ed, and even corporate and commercial real estate. So that's a little bit about where we are in the marketplace.
All right, well, I appreciate that. It sounds like you've got a serious breadth of knowledge and skill set. It sounds like Newcomb Boyd gets to play with some really cool stuff. So recently you've started using some of DYNICS products in the cybersecurity space between our ICS 360 Defender product line and our OTSDN controller product line. And I'm curious, what is it about the tool set, or what is it about those products that caught your attention or kind of brought you into the DYNICS fold, so to speak, in terms of those products?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the bigger things that we found with this advancement of technology in the space is because it's technology and because it deals with humans and data, there's a giant cybersecurity need. And a lot of the equipment that's going in is not put in, it may be capable of being hardened, but it's not. And so therefore, we have a cybersecurity wing as part of our design studio that is responsible for everything from policy and governance, creating standards, inserting cybersecure language into our specs, with our specifications, which is how we actually do our job, is basically that's the design, all the way through doing audits and assessments. And one of the bigger things, in order to enable a cyber secure smart building environment is we look for products, we look for things that are out in the marketplace that can enable that for our clients. And I was drawn to DYNICS. I have a network architecture background along with cybersecurity. And one of the things that drew me to DYNICS was the ease of which it's kind of funny. I often refer to it as a network company that brings along a incredible cybersecurity value add. And that is the use of software-defined networking layered on top of it. The ease of which it's deployed. You mentioned our lab. We have a nice lab that we just built out in our last renovation of our office space there. And we were able to stand up a number of pieces of equipment, HVAC controllers, lighting controllers, all the things that you would find operating in a building. And within less than a day, we were able to stand a DYNICS instance up and incorporate the communications and create the pathways and flows to create a secure environment with that product. That really impressed me because it's lowering the bar for entry and it makes it easier for people to take that first step. I'd rather have a really strong front door than a sensor on the inside that tells me that somebody's already in my house. So DYNICS kind of fills that role, and it allows for a granular control of communications, which is something that traditionally networking architecture has always struggled to do. And when you did try to do it, it was overly complicated and almost impossible to maintain. And DYNICS kind of blew me away with their approach to it.
Well, that's good to hear. We try to make it OT centric, or smart enough that the IT folks like it and love it, but easy enough to use that the OT folks who might not have a significant amount of experience in networking or OT or cybersecurity also can get a handle on it pretty quickly. And I think, as I understand it, you've never really had any training here other than some time on the phone with a couple of guys from my team, and you deployed this whole thing on a Monday in your lab, and you demoed it on Tuesday. How was that? How did you feel doing that? Did you feel comfortable going into that, or did you any nervousness?
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, it was rather interesting to take that approach because, like I said, and to your point, it does lower the bar for entry. That is one of the main reasons why I like it, because right now, cybersecurity in the built environment, it's I used to refer to as OT. Coming from an IT perspective, OT was a feral cat. Nobody knew what to do with it in IT. You had a computer, you could drop a piece of software on it, and you could manage it, maintain it remotely. You can understand, what it's doing at any point in time. You can't necessarily do that with operational technology pieces that go in. And so the best thing that you can do is be able to wrap it and give it a pen in which to live in, put it in a box, and only allow certain communications to flow through it. And understanding the concept of it is great. There is no owner in a lot of instances that is going to be ultimately responsible. So in other words, IT is not going to own it, OT is not going to own it, because up until now, it's really complicated to be able to produce and put in place. And that's the piece that you've lowered the bar for entry. You could have people with very, very little networking skill sets be able to say, okay, I'm going to group these devices and I'm going to allow them to talk. So the rules are very, very rudimentary to be able to put in, but very effective because it's denied by default. So you can play with it and it recognizes flows of communication. So if I've got pieces of equipment that need to talk to other pieces of equipment in a very simple way, you can have them be allowed first, capture those flows, and then reduce that communication footprint based on what you see on the screen. And it's as simple as clicking. So yeah, it was fantastic to get in there on a Monday, get everything set up, and then demo it by the end of day Tuesday. I had no problems whatsoever doing that.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. It's that's something we kind of strive for, right? Our roots are in the OT space. We started there, so I think we understand the challenges in that space more than most, and we try to convey that in the way we put our software together and our solutions together. Having been in charge of plant floor networks for multi-billion-dollar companies, having a really knowledgeable skill set across the globe it just doesn't exist, right? You get maybe one or two guys who have a handle on things, maybe per plant, maybe per site, but being able to lower the bar on entry and making it so folks can actually secure their facilities and secure their businesses without needing a rock star on site. It's really the bogey. It's kind of really the goal. Um, I'm glad to hear you had that experience. That's exactly what we're after, and I look forward to showing you the new updated user interface that we're going to be releasing soon. It's got it takes everything we liked and did with the other one and really expands on that with some more state of the art technology. So that's awesome. Um, so I know you guys focus on smart buildings and automation within smart buildings. You know, I think you hit on this a little bit earlier too. You know, the state of that business or the state of where that's at. You know, I joke, Chris Gibbs and I joke that, you know, it's crazy about buildings. They seem to be everywhere you look, there's a building. So it seems like there's probably a lot of need for cybersecurity that's really, you know, I would think in old buildings in particular, and you know, how do you address concerns in older buildings and older systems versus newer systems and newer buildings? It seems like that would be a significant challenge to come up with a solution that really plays in both places. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Because controls in buildings have been around for decades. And one of the things that I keep seeing over and over again, and it's not really the fault of anyone, is I see um, those systems having a network, but they're pretty much on their own, but yet exposed. And what I mean by that is there's a concept called converged networking, and it's really from the endpoint perspective. So it came about back in the day. You would have a network switch that would be connected, and it would service all of your desktops. Were really a whole lot of laptops back then, but it would service all your desktops. And then you'd have another network switch that was on a different virtual local area network that would service like printers. And you physically and logically separated your network. Then when voice came out, it gave you the ability to plug like a desktop or something into a phone that was on your desk, and but you needed to treat voice data separately from your desktop data. And they created converged networking, which allowed you to create different rule sets and tagging of traffic. So that way, if you did have that set up, you'd be able to say, my voice traffic has higher priority over my desktop traffic. And you would reduce the number of cables, therefore the number of switches that you would need in your network by converging into one physical switch. Buildings aren't built that way. Buildings are built with a specific solution or technology with its own requirements. So, in instance, if you have an HVAC system and you have controllers all over the building, they'll actually build out two separate networks. One is going to be a serial network over RS-485 going to a controller, and that controller would have an Ethernet interface, and it would talk some type of building protocol, whether it's Modbus or BACnet. And then you would have a computer running the software for management and visibility, usually sitting underneath somebody's desk, probably the head engineer, wherever his office is. And then he would have an Ethernet connection, and he would be able to connect all those controllers out in the field. And in order to do that across a large building, they would put in switches, little DIN rail mounted switches that would have the ability to be managed. But because they're controls people, not network people, they would often leave those switches defaulted, which means it's manageable, but it's unmanaged. And that creates a huge, huge vulnerability right there. Because just about anybody could gain access to a room that has an HVAC control panel. And now they're incorporating Wi-Fi into these, and they're leaving those as defaulted. So you're creating a surface threat attack area that's constantly being expanded unknowingly, which is a big problem. So even in those buildings that don't necessarily have a converged network where you're putting your lighting control, your elevators, your electronic safety security like surveillance and access control on one network, and then you're controlling it from a single point, they all individually end up having their own networks because they have a system integrator designated to install that technology, and they're putting in their own network. So you could have up to like 15 different actual networks in a building that exist today. And so if you take a look at your most vulnerable parts, and where that HVAC system becomes really vulnerable is when somebody says, oh, I'd love to have outside weather data so that I can effectively run my HVAC and know when it's going to rain, when it's going to be cold, what the temperature is, and then I can adjust my HVAC system on the mechanical side to open up the louvers, to bring in cold air, how to condition it. And so they buy a cable modem and they plug it in. Well, you've effectively now opened up that network to everybody on the outside world. And with the concept of deny by default, you would not be able to allow that to happen. The building management system or that software that runs on the computer would then only be allowed out to the internet, and you would not be able to have any other visibility into the rest of the network. So in what we call a brownfield deployment, which is already existing, versus a greenfield, which is new, built from the ground up, it's even more imperative and easier to go after some of those devices when you do your refreshes of equipment. A lot of this technology is aging out now. Like I said, it's been out for 20 years. And so people are constantly coming to us with these refresh projects to update the controls in their building. And it's a really good opportunity, excuse me, to have a product like this that I can say, okay, you need to include a secure network for these devices to operate on. And then you need to change the parameters on those controllers from default usernames and passwords, basic cyber hygiene stuff. And so we're finding a lot of success in changing that part of the industry through that process.
So I'm really curious. You mentioned RS-485. RS-485 was predominant in the industrial plant floor manufacturing space for a long time, and it's not used very frequently anymore. Is that still something that's current tech in a building automation, or is it older buildings are that way, newer buildings are different, or is it still a mix mash of a little bit of everything?
We're starting to see a dynamic shift in the industry to IP for everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so your VAVs, things that control the airflow within the building that's been traditionally serial. We're starting to see some manufacturers actually drop that line within the next couple of years. So we're right on that cusp of having the manufacturers embrace IP. So it's more imperative than ever now to be able to have a communication infrastructure that is able to secure it.
Yeah, you may have heard this before, but you mentioned deny by default. I tend to be a big fan of that, and if you look at any of the products that we offer from a cybersecurity perspective, that's kind of a prevalent theme. Is everything is denied by default. The idea being, if we can cap the bottle and keep things out, then we have less to deal with later. If you don't have to mitigate a problem that you've already caught, it's a lot better than having to mitigate some infestation that it's already landed and it's already propagated around the building. Then having a monitoring only tool that says, hey, look, by the way, you've got this horrible infestation. What would you like to do about it? Maybe you should go fix it, versus just keeping it out to begin with. I don't know. It's always seemed like it made more sense to me than the other way around. So.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I certainly appreciate your time today. I think we're close to the end. It's been close to 30 minutes. Did you have any other thoughts about the state of the industry or the partnership with DYNICS that you can think of? I kind of put you on the spot there a little bit.
Yeah, I'm happy to see the paradigm shift. It's one of the things I set out to do when I joined Newcomb Boyd about 5 years ago. I saw a need, and I tried to figure out the best way to. That's why I'm part of all those organizations that Chris mentioned in the beginning. I'm an active member of a lot of that, and a lot of us feel the same way, and that cybersecurity, excuse me, in this environment is needed. I mean, you take a look at a healthcare organization, and their mechanics are they're trusting a vendor to install all their HVAC equipment. But if that gets compromised in any way, you're shutting down ORs. That's affecting real life.
Yeah, that would be
That'd be catastrophic, right? Yeah, cybersecurity in certain environments, depending on if you're in corporate real estate, depending on who you're leasing to. It could be a government entity. It could be a civilian entity providing government services that occupies your building. And I've seen where you've been able to do actual hacks, or you do some type of penetration test in that building. And unfortunately, it's very successful. It's very easy to sit outside of a building and watch who pulls up to it and see the service name on the side of the van and go, oh, they have that type of equipment, and then go to the county and take a look at how old the building is. And you can kind of pretty much guess how old the equipment is, and then research some CVEs and figure out what the vulnerabilities could potentially be. And then do a walkthrough through the initial part of the building and the common areas, get an idea of some threat vector attacks that you could perpetrate, and then Bob's your uncle, you've got an escape plan. And no one ever goes in maliciously right away, right? You're like a
That's like
spider.
movies. That's like
Yeah,
movie stuff, right? I mean,
but
that's the
it's
stuff you see in a
movie
movie.
stuff is based off of real life, you know? So
Oh,
it's I'm glad to see that people are starting to take it seriously, and I'm glad to see manufacturers like yourselves out there that are tackling these types of problems so that it lowers, like I said, it lowers the bar for entry into cybersecurity. It's not a race. There is no finish. It's something that people just have to understand. It's table stakes to operate your building in a very simple way. And this is a very simple solution. People are really good at picking solutions, buying a piece of software that can scan, which again goes back to our original point where people have a tendency to, scan and know what's going on after the effect, but I'd like to prevent it from coming in. That's why I like to use the door analogy on my house. Buy a big, strong door, not just a strong lock, and that
yep.
prevents me from coming in rather than a sensor telling me somebody's already in my house. So it's the
Yep.
peace of mind that it provides and the awareness in the industry that they need it. I think those are going to be the two biggest paradigm changes within the next couple of years. I'm happy for it.
Yeah, I am too. It's been a long time coming in so many different fields right now. So, well, Michael, I certainly appreciate your time. It's been great chatting with you today, and as always, I look forward to working with you and your team at Newcomb and Boyd, and you know, really bringing our solution to the market because, as you mentioned, I think it lowers the bar of entry, and I think it increases the coverage and attack. It decreases attack surface for so many different places. So, again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate the time today.